This is Special Prosecutor Larry Klayman.
I'm the only lawyer ever to obtain a court ruling that a president of the United States committed a crime.
For truth. For competition.
As a young lawyer, I helped break up AT&T. That's why you have all your cell phones today.
For sovereignty. For the Republic.
I'm the guy who, at Judicial Watch, which I founded, uncovered the Chinagate scandal. Millions of dollars going to the Clinton campaign, corrupting our political system.
For the privacy of citizens.
And I'm the only guy to have enjoined the National Security Agency from mass surveillance on hundreds of millions of Americans.
Tearing it up.
I'm the son of meat packers in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I know how to slice and dice.
Bringing it back.
We're going to take this country apart and put it back together again in the way envisioned by our founding fathers.
It's not just talk.
We're not just regurgitating news stories. Larry Klayman, special prosecutor, is making the news.
And now, here's Larry.
Welcome to this week's edition of Special Prosecutor with Larry Klayman, the 19th anniversary of September 11, 2001. A sad day. It was a day that will live in infamy. The greatest attack on the United States since Pearl Harbor during World War II, which gave rise to World War II. But we need to take homage not just of the dead, not just of the tremendous tragedy, but we have to put it in context. And in fact, I've written a column tonight at WND.com. Go out and try to find that at freedomwatchusa.org. And what I explain is this, is that with the nation literally on its back, with regard to COVID-19, with regard to the leftist violence that's occurring, the Bolshevik Revolution, where the left is trying to overthrow the vision and concept of our founding fathers. Of course, they're not really trying to overthrow the government because there is no government. We don't have a government anymore. As I say in my new book, it takes a revolution, forget the scandal industry. The executive branch, which is run by the deep state, more powerful than the president, more powerful than President Trump. They've tried to remove him over the last 4 years. The legislative branch, comprised of court jesters and clowns, but they're not so funny. They're not funny clowns. They stuff money into their pockets. They acquire more power. They stoke race wars. They have divided this nation like we've never seen before. They're absolutely deplorable, and that's the appropriate use of the word deplorable, not the way Hillary Clinton used it. But yes, our legislature is deplorable. And of course, we have the judicial branch of government, which is a non-branch. They think they're there for life, but they're not. They shouldn't be. It's not even in the Constitution. They only serve for good behavior. And they believe that they have immunity. The Supreme Court gave their justices immunity and gave the rest of the courts immunity. They should not have immunity. They need to be held accountable for what they do because, as Jefferson said, as unelected, they will certainly turn into despots, causing us once again to shed the blood of patriots. Now, we want to avoid that. Okay, the left wants to shed the blood, but not of patriots. They want to shed the blood of all of us. They want to destroy us. They want to steal from us. They want to maim. They want to kill. They want to destroy this country. So if you take COVID-19 and put it together with the radical left of all persuasions and groups and races, colors, and creeds that want to turn this country into a Marxist Soviet-style state, if you're looking from the outside, if you're looking from the Islamic Republic of Iran, or you're looking from the standpoint of communist China, which has already done its part to destroy this country and the rest of the Western world, or if you're looking from the point of North Korea or other foreign adversaries or terrorist groups, because Al-Qaeda still exists. Maybe it's not as great as it used to be, but it still exists. So does ISIS. You have to see the United States in a very vulnerable position right now. Now is the time, if you're going to attack the United States, if you're going to try to slay the great Satan, if you're Iran, that regime in Iran, which is pure evil, which has tried to destroy Israel, which is trying to take control of the entire Middle East and the world, which dances to the beat of Islam, which in my view is not a religion, it's a cult. No religion, true religion, can teach to kill the infidels or to subject them to slavery and tax them heavily. I'm sorry, that's my position. It's not radical Islam, it's Islam. These forces are working against us. Not just ourselves, but our children and grandchildren are at great risk. And we're taking our eye off the ball with everything that's going on, much like happened in the days leading up to 9/11, 2001. I was fighting the Clintons over 40 scandals. The one that really caught fire was one which I didn't consider to be the most important scandal, the Monica Lewinsky scandal. It was Chinagate, it was Filegate, it was everything else when the President Clinton and his lovely bride, and I use lovely in quotes, the wicked witch of the left, Hillary Clinton, was doing everything they could to harm this country, to further their own interests, to feather their own nest, to steal from the people. And when that happened, as the president was having his sexcapades with Monica Lewinsky, Osama bin Laden had other ideas. As the president was having sex, it was the American people, excuse the French, who were getting screwed. We took our eye off the ball, and 9/11 happened. Well, yes, now we have COVID-19. Now we have this leftist counter-revolution, this Bolshevik revolution. So we have to be especially vigilant right now, and we have to get ourselves out of this state. Electing Donald Trump as president certainly is preferable to electing the brain-dead Joe Biden and his two-faced racist, anti-white vice presidential candidate Kamala Harris. All people are equal, by the way. Doesn't matter who you are. But she doesn't think that. And Biden, who's playing the game to get elected, cozying up to the radical left, they hope that he'll be their Trojan horse, assuming he's even lucid enough to be anything, which is very doubtful. Now, as a personal matter, I don't tell people, personal matter, I can say who I'm going to vote for and who I support, but as head of Freedom Watch, I don't tell people who to vote for. But I'll tell you this, the combination of COVID-19, of this leftist radical revolution that wants to destroy our country and install a Marxist state, coupled with the election of Obama and Harris, will be the end of this country as we know it. But electing President Trump is not going to arrest the decline of this country either, because even if he's elected, he'll be there only for 4 years, and he really has very little, if any, power. In fact, we've seen that. He's been checked by a runaway judiciary, an ultra-leftist judiciary that believes that they're above the law, that they can do whatever they want. They're there for life. They can't be touched. And, of course, we have the legislature, the Congress, which is doing its own thing, enriching itself and acquiring power and causing division in the country. And then you have the deep state and the intelligence agencies and elsewhere who are more powerful than the president himself. So my book, It Takes a Revolution, Forget the Scandal Industry. And I urge you to go out at Amazon.com, at BarnesandNoble.com, at Books A Million, Borders.com. You can find it all over the internet. Pre-order it, because it's not like the book of Sean Hannity, which basically just is a repetition of his monologues, which he repeats every single night. We've heard them all. They usually end with, and the Democrats want to throw Granny over the cliff. And then the conclusion in the chapter is, just vote for Donald Trump. That'll solve everything. Well, maybe it'll solve it for Hannity because he'll keep his little groupie like into the White House, okay, which frankly does little to no good for anybody. But what will do some good for people is to realize that we need to wage an American revolution, another one, peacefully and legally. And that's what my book gets to. It just doesn't say vote for Donald Trump, okay? It says we, the people, must rise up to save this country, not just for ourselves, but for our children and for our grandchildren. And that's what's so important. And I urge you to read the WorldNet Daily column that I'm writing this Friday. It'll be up at freedomwatchusa.org. And also watch, which is going to be embedded into that, an interview I did with Ambassador Alan Keyes. Alan is one of the great thinkers in the United States. It's a shame that he is not president of the United States. He ran twice. Obviously, the forces of the establishment Republican Party were against him. But Alan and I discuss how the president has authority, how he can use certain authority in conjunction with we, the people, rising up to not just restore law and order, but to take control over what's happening with this leftist Bolshevik revolution, furthered by the leftist media, furthered by CNN, the Communist News Network, furthered by MSNBC, the New York Times, the Washington Post, and others. And let's talk about the Washington Post. Look at how Bob Woodward the so-called famous investigative reporter that has a notch on his belt, having taken down Richard Nixon when I was a young man working in Congress for Senator Richard Schweiker of Pennsylvania during Watergate, how he set the president up. Now, you got to ask yourself this question. Why did the president give that interview? I mean, he should have thought. He needs to start thinking for the American people and not just for himself. It's not just a question of boosting ego anymore. It's a question of saving our country. And Woodward set him up, asked him certain questions. The president was spewing forth, frankly, trying to be a big shot. And he is a big shot because he's president of the United States. But he said certain things that are being used against him, that are being used to cut the legs out from under him. I know Woodward. I met with him when I was running Judicial Watch. The guy's a snake. The Washington Post, which is now owned by Jeff Bezos, an ultra-leftist owner of Amazon.com and Amazon generally, even owns Whole Foods, for that matter. Check your food. Maybe you need a food taster if you buy your food at Whole Foods, and I do sometimes. But the radical left has many vehicles now, and they're not just trying to destroy the president of the United States through people like Woodward, but they're trying to destroy you and your loved ones. And this is why it's necessary. And apparently they're calling from the radical left. They don't know what, they're scared of what I'm saying. It is necessary that we, the people, rise up and defend ourselves and take this country back. And I'm not saying it the way Newt Gingrich says it or other establishment Republicans, take the country back. What does that mean? That doesn't mean just voting for President Trump. It means that we need to rise up. So purchase a pre-order copy of my book. It's going to come out on October 27th. And get one now because they're going fast at Barnes & Noble, at Amazon.com, at all the booksellers. It takes a revolution. Forget the scandal industry. Get up off the couch, turn Hannity off, and let's get to work. You and me and the rest of the American people. I'll be right back with the second segment of Special Prosecutor with Larry Klayman.
Dangerous.
Don't care. Use the court and the law.
Lethal.
This is bad.
Special Prosecutor
Very bad.
Larry Klayman.
If you'd like to support Freedom Watch and this radio show, go to freedomwatchusa.org.
I'm back with my friend, my brother, my colleague, Dimitri Penny. He's now also a director of America's Sheriff. I'm very proud of that we formed with Sheriff Joe Arpaio to protect law enforcement and to further the rule of law and to take the chaos and Bolshevik-style revolution off the streets. But Dimitri is also running for Congress in a Texas district near Dallas. I endorse him personally. I don't endorse anybody as the head of Freedom Watch or any public interest group. But I want to give Dimitri an opportunity as to what he's trying to accomplish. And I can tell you, this is one brave person. He is someone who took on Black Lives Matter, New Black Panthers Party, Louis Farrakhan, Al Sharpton, the rest, is an African-American policeman in Dallas, Texas, after the Dallas massacre in early July 2016. He took a lot of heat. People called him all kinds of names. He was threatened. His family was threatened, not just by the radical left, not just by radical African-Americans like Black Lives Matter, but also threatened by whites and by others because he speaks the truth. And he's a threat to the radical left. And he would certainly be a wise and great addition to U.S. Congress, at least to educate the American people as to where we need to go. Much like I'm trying to do with my book, It Takes a Revolution, Forget the Scandal Industry. Dimitri, welcome to Special Prosecutor with Larry Klayman. Tell us what you're trying to accomplish by running for Congress and how people can support you and hopefully help get you elected.
Yeah, so, Larry, first of all, I want to thank you for having me on. But, look, this is the situation that we're in. And I know that a lot of people have seen this wave in American society where law enforcement has been demonized, where these officers have been attacked. They're trying to do their job, and they're being demonized, and their interests are directly being attacked. The American interests are directly being attacked. And, unfortunately, because of the way that our laws are written, the mob rule, individuals that they have an opportunity to do whatever they like. They can do whatever they like to destroy our country. They can, they can hurt our officers and get away with it. Why? Because there are no policies in place to actually deal with that. We don't have a comprehensive domestic terrorism policy. We have no way to stop them from organizing with social media. And I've been through this. You saw that I went through it with all the lawsuits. When I filed the lawsuit in 2016 against Black Lives Matter to try to quell the movement. But we really expected that the DOJ would have stepped in and actually deemed these groups as a domestic terrorist group. And we identify these, it's by their own definition. The DOJ defines domestic terrorism as groups using force and intimidation for the purposes of changing governmental policy. That's exactly what they did. But unfortunately, they didn't get a designation as a domestic terrorist group. But they've been allowed to carry out havoc across this country, destroy buildings, riot, loot, hurt people, kill people, and nothing has been done. And then we fast forward into 2017 with the lawsuit against Facebook, Google, and Twitter for facilitating these attacks against American interests. Until this day, there's been no type of legislation to actually rein in those social media platforms. Guys, if the executive branch won't do it, and we can't get anything done through the judicial branch, the only other option is the legislature. That's the only other option is to run for Congress so that we can try to protect American interests. We're at war right now, and I hate to say it that way, but we are at a war with our own interests, and we don't even realize it. We're being subverted by individuals outside of America. You want to talk about – you had a lot of people that brought a lot of concern up about the Russian interference during the 2016 election. They brought that whole deal up. The reality is we have foreign entities outside of this country that are now sowing division and are trying to bring down the American society. I need your help. Learn more about me at Penny for Congress, pennyforcongress.com. And listen, get behind me and let's change the interests that are trying to hurt our country.
Well, that's right. We need people like Dimitri Penny. We need people like Laura Loomer in there. These people are demonized. They're held out by the left as being radical, as being pathological. You know what? The radical left is pathological. They're communists. They're socialists. They're Bolsheviks. They have their Trojan horses right now, and Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, stooges, I would say, where they hope to consolidate power. We cannot allow that to happen. So I support my good friend and colleague, Dimitri Penny, as I do Laura Loomer. They're the only ones out there right now who will help change things in Congress. The rest of them are a bunch of court jesters and clowns, stuffing money into their pocket, acquiring more power. Dimitri, God bless. We'll have you back again, and stay safe. Thanks for everything you do.
Yes, sir.
And now, 4 words that make corrupt politicians make wee-wee in their little pants.
Transparency and the rule of law will be the touchstones of this presidency.
But we have to pass the bill so that you can find out what is in it.
Special Prosecutor Larry Klayman.
Be the one who makes our country great again. Go to freedomwatchusa.org and donate.
I'm back with Alan Keyes, my great friend, my colleague, a true American patriot, former UN ambassador, former presidential candidate on at least 2 occasions, ran for the U.S. Senate against Barack Obama. Unfortunately, he did not become president. Obama did. The country would be a lot different today if Alan was president. But I want to pick his brain because he's got a very intelligent brain. He understands the Constitution. He understands the rule of law. And I want Alan to explain to you and also to the president, because we're going to give this segment to the president to listen to, why he has the authority to enforce the rule of law, to put down this leftist insurrection in our cities, and to take control. And this is very important because I don't think he understands that fully. He thinks that he has to ask permission from state governors and local mayors to do it. He does not. Alan, explain exactly why the president can take action now and can put down what is in effect a Bolshevik revolution.
Well, sadly, I think you're right about the fact that somebody's not explaining it to him. I was reading an article that actually had, I think, the former Presidential Assistant on National Security, Mattis, saying that the president has to be asked by the governors or the state legislature to intervene in the event of an insurrection. And that's actually entirely contrary to the law because it's contrary to the logic of the Constitution. In the 14th Amendment, the Constitution explicitly says, and it applies this to the states, no state, right, shall, then it goes, deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. And that was passed in the aftermath of the Civil War. I've read a little bit about it, and it seems to have been in anticipation of the possibility that majority rule governments controlled by people who were formerly Confederates and slave owners and things like this would not be averse to not protecting the property and rights of freed slaves. And the amendment was to make it clear that in that event the national government could intervene to secure those rights. It is translated into law, and it appears, the translation, in 10 U.S. Code, paragraph 253, if people want to look at it, interference with state and federal law. And it says, in the U.S. Code, the president, by using the militia or the armed forces or both, or by any other means, shall take such measures as he considers necessary to suppress in a state any insurrection, domestic violence, unlawful combination, or conspiracy, if it, 1, so hinders the execution of the laws of that state and of the United States within the state that any part or class of its people is deprived of a right, privilege, immunity, or protection named in the Constitution and secured by law, and the constituted authorities of that state are unable, fail, or refuse to protect that right, privilege, or immunity, or to give that protection, or 2, opposes or obstructs the execution of the laws of the United States or impedes the course of justice under those laws. In any situation covered by Clause 1, the state shall be considered to have denied the equal protection of the laws secured by the Constitution. That is, it will be considered to have violated the 14th Amendment to the Constitution. That's what's right there in front of us in the way in which that 14th Amendment is translated into law. And it's clear, Larry, this specifically applies to the circumstances we've been watching in Seattle, in Minneapolis, where these mayors and other people are standing there, oh, no, they're protesters. And the scene behind the reporter is burning cities and looting taking place of the stores and the grocery stores and everything else, taking over parts of the city, intimidating people with guns, and so forth. If that is not domestic violence, unlawful combination, and a conspiracy to deprive people of life, liberty, and property without due process, I don't know what is. And it clearly says that in those circumstances, the president, by using the militia, shall take such measures as he considers necessary. Notice the shall there, like thou shalt not kill, thou shalt honor thy father and thy mother. Shall is an imperative word. At some point, it becomes the president's responsibility to act against such insurrection if the state or local officials are neglecting it, or if they are encouraging it, worse still. And, of course, a lot of us suspect that in the case of Black Lives Matter thugs, Antifa thugs, all this violence that's going on in our cities, you and I both know that a lot of these Soros-backed candidates for district attorney and prosecuting attorney, a lot of these Democrats who are mayors and governors, they're actually quietly encouraging these insurrections to try to reduce our country to chaos. And the president does, in fact, have the obligation under the Constitution to intervene and stop them.
Well, that's right. And not just to reduce it to chaos, but they want to take the country over. They want to take it down to ground zero and then establish what is a socialist, communist state, okay, a Marxist state. That's the intention. Now, people are dying in the streets. 1-year-old children are being killed. It's unbelievable. The president needs to take action himself. And as you pointed out, Alan, he can even mobilize the police department. He can take control. He can have militias take control, legal militias. They're in our Second Amendment. It's not a dirty word, militias.
Right. And I think that's particularly affirmed because it says here, by using the militia or the armed forces, right, So, and it's organized militia or unorganized militia. It just says the militia. The National Guard, for example, is the organized militia. But the militia that used to be called out to track down the robbers of the banks and so forth and so on, usually through the mechanism of the county sheriffs, those are also militia that are available, as are all the able-bodied people capable of bearing arms, who would then respond to a call in a president's orders of the day telling them what they could do to help their country. And meanwhile, it also says, or by any other means. And other means would be available, for instance, in police departments and other forces of law that could then be brought under the jurisdiction of the president by the terms of this federal law. And so I think he's got a lot of leeway as to how he can answer this, and all the forces in the country that could help put down these insurrections are in fact subjected to his command by this language.
And that's important now, Alan, that he do that. Right now, he's playing politics. He's realizing that it's gaining him votes that he wins re-election. Now, you and I want to see him win re-election, right, and we support him. But that's not enough. And he needs to put the marker in the sand. He needs to draw the line in the sand, as President Reagan would have done if he was still president. Because if he doesn't, we know that the left is planning not just insurrection. They're planning mass chaos and violence. It's out there. It's on the internet. There was an article just in the Daily Beast yesterday, what they're planning to do if the president wins, and even if he doesn't win, because they want to create a new Marxist state, and this is their way of doing it. And if the president does win, and let's hope he does, we're going to see major cities burn. I'm in L.A. today. I have friends who are going to leave town shortly before the election and not come back for a month, because this town is going to be in flames. It'll make Rodney King's riots look like a warm-up act, as well as other major cities.
I've been reading a lot of things that suggest that there's an organized plan, for example, starting, I think, in the middle of September. They want to try to essentially turn the Washington, D.C. and the federal offices and the White House and places like this into a besieged city. And to try to confine the president in his ability to go out and get around the country. Now, they're underestimating, I think, the ingenuity and preparations of the people who guard the president and assure that he can continue in his role as the country's chief magistrate. But they're trying to target it. But I think they also just want to send the message that he's not in control, and that people need to be afraid, very afraid, because what the Democrats have been doing, directly or indirectly, throughout this process, is mounting a campaign of terrorism against the people of the United States. And they soften them up for it, in my opinion, by essentially advising all this cowardly stuff we've been doing, hunkering down with the coronavirus and all, inspiring us to believe that when we get into battle with the virus, we run away, hide in the basement, mask ourselves so that we don't have to come anywhere near the danger. The very kind of mentality that somebody trying to conquer the country would want to imbue in our citizens while it was going on.
Well, that's right. And you know, we're on all fronts. I mean, they've tried to destroy the economy. They have largely succeeded at doing that. This is the problem that we have with our so-called government today. They're in it for themselves. They're not in it for the American people. And as I was on your show earlier today, and I wrote a new book. It's called It Takes a Revolution, Forget the Scandal Industry. And I hope people go out and buy it on Amazon.com and Barnes & Noble, Books A Million. It's out there. It's going to come out in October. You can pre-order it. But the American people now need to rise up themselves. The president has the ability, as you just pointed out, to mobilize us to take matters into our own peaceful and legal hands, and if necessary, in other hands, okay, to enforce the rule of law, because this country is on the verge of being totally destroyed. And this is not just pie in the sky. We can see what goes on every single day, and it's getting worse. And you said, you know, that finances are coming from George Soros. Undoubtedly they are, but I believe they're also coming from overseas. Yeah. They're probably coming from China. They're probably coming from Russia. Undoubtedly they're coming from Iran. I'm in L.A. Well, You've got a lot of Iranian agents here that are working against the people.
I was reading earlier today or yesterday information that I think I had glimpsed sometime back in May, but but I just made a note of it. Kamala Harris's husband has been working hand in glove through his firm that he's part of, and they have a very close relationship with what essentially amounts to Chinese economic propaganda, right? Positioning themselves in such a way that they can benefit and profit from the things that are going on in the world economically, and they help to inform the Chinese Communist Party and ease the way. Not, to me, a reassuring relationship for somebody who might be one step away from the presidency.
And she's not the only one. Dianne Feinstein has had a close relationship through her husband with China for many years. Communist China, that is, the Communist Party. Chinese people are very good people. Actually brought a class action against China over COVID-19. 30% people that signed up as class action plaintiffs are Chinese Americans. They know what's going on. And we, the American people, need to rise up, Alan. And I want to thank you for what you do. And I'm going to take this segment and I'm going to send it to the White House. I'm going to have it directly. I'm going to send it to Mark Meadows. I know Mark. He's a good guy, actually. And I want him to let the president listen to this. And it's very, very important because it's not enough to play politics. It's not enough to say, I need to be invited in to do something. What does he do when he's reelected? Is he going to ask for permission again? But when he is reelected, this country is going to burn. The radical left plans to do that.
And in that context, I think it would be something to be thought on. If you are going to make a move to suppress the insurrections that are taking place, is it better to do it in the aftermath of an election when they can claim that you're using violence to defend the bad outcome, or to do it in the context of your legal and lawful and constitutional responsibility to protect the people of this country in the exercise of rights explicitly guaranteed by the Constitution, so that if and when it's necessary to make use of the military or any other means, as it says in the law, to protect the laws and the execution of the laws, according to the 14th Amendment, the obligation of the states to protect the people, let's do it in the name of the people. Let's do it in the name of the Constitution. Let's do it in a way that is clearly timed to make that the issue, so that we throw back the terror that is taking place before it's too late.
Well, yes, Alan, and what you said is very important. I want to thank you for coming on. We're out of time on this segment, but I want to have you back, and it's my privilege to go on your show as well, because we need to educate the American people right now as to what their rights are, their equal protection rights, as you just read to them in that U.S. Code statute. Thank you very much for everything you do, my good friend.
And
God bless you.
Before he was a trial lawyer, he sliced him and diced him.
People used to ask me, Larry, what caused you to start Judicial Watch and now Freedom Watch, given the powerful forces in this country that put you at risk?
In a meat packing plant.
I'm the son of meat packers in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I know how to slice and dice.
A very special prosecutor, Larry Klayman.
If you'd like to support Freedom Watch and this radio show, go to freedomwatchusa.org.
And now, fellow patriots, Americans, those who believe in the rule of law, those who believe in the Constitution, those who believe in natural law and the law of God, the Ten Commandments. I have to say, honestly, there are very few people in our so-called government that believe in any of those things. What they do believe in is themselves. They believe in enriching themselves. They believe in playing one American off of another, and I might add many Americans off of each other. They believe in race wars. They believe that it's okay to allow looting, stealing, maiming, burning, and killing. Even one-year-old children are being killed in the streets as we speak. We have Democrat mayors and governors who think this is great because it's going to bring down the president of the United States, Donald Trump. And then we have President Trump, frankly, who's playing political games, who says, let this thing continue, so will people vote for me? He has the power, as Alan Keyes has pointed out, to stop it right now. He's the president of the United States. He has a duty to do that. I can assure you that if Ronald Reagan was president today, this wouldn't have gone on for 24 hours. So the president needs to step up to the plate. He needs to forget about giving interviews to people like Bob Woodward and put down his cell phone and stop tweeting and get to work. And I love the president, and I want him to succeed, and Larry Klayman personally is going to vote for him. We've, in effect, been his law firm for 4 years. But you know what? There has to be tough love at some point, because it's not just a question of him. It's a question of the entire country. But as I write in my book, It Takes a Revolution, Forget the Scandal Industry, is that the president, nor is anyone the Messiah. There's only one Messiah, that's Jesus Christ, and there's only one Father, and that's Yahweh, that's God. This is not a situation where simply electing Donald Trump is going to save this country, although it will slow the downward slide. And if Biden and Harris are elected, you can forget it. There she wrote. Because it's likely that if they have enough votes to win, ultimately, that the Republicans, as worthless as they are, will lose both branches of government. And already the judiciary is so infested with individuals who think they're above the law, who act as if they have no accountability because they're unelected, as Jefferson said, that the country is in a total meltdown. And on this anniversary of 9/11, the moral to the story is that if things continue the way they are, we're not just going to have a problem with COVID-19. We're not just going to have more than a problem with the Bolsheviks in the streets that are destroying everything that will someday, in the near future, not in just the small way they've done it so far, demand that you turn over all your property, that you turn over your house, your car, your keys, that you leave, that they're going to take control because this is the equivalent of Bolshevik Russia right now. And this is something that needs to be understood, because unless the American people rise up now, it'll be too late, with or without President Trump in office. And that's why go to freedomwatchusa.org, read what I have to say, and then also purchase my new book, It Takes a Revolution, Forget the Scandal Industry. I doubt that I'm going to make anything off of this financially, but you need to read it. And you can pre-order it at Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com, BooksAMillion.com, Borders.com. It's all over the place. You need to read it because I go through the history of the collapse of our government, and I go through the history of how we wound up with these federal judges who don't represent the American people and don't protect themselves, don't protect ourselves. They do protect themselves, I can tell you that. And why we now need to rise up, and I give concrete solutions on how to do this. It's not like Sean Hannity's book, which basically just repeats his monologue and then says, vote for Trump. That's real easy. You know, that'll get you inside the White House. It'll get you to rub shoulders with the president, but it's not going to save this country. So this is why it's important to go out and purchase and pre-order It Takes a Revolution. It is, in effect, a conservative, libertarian, person of faith, anti-socialist, anti-communist manifesto. It is not like Marx's Communist Manifesto. It's like Thomas Jefferson's manifesto. And in fact, I dedicate the book to him. So that's my message today on the 19th anniversary of 9/11. We have a lot to be thankful for that we're still alive, but frankly, we're barely alive. And it's time to rise up if we want to save not just this country, but our loved ones, our children, our grandchildren, and leave a legacy going into the future of the great vision and creation of our founding fathers. I'll be back next week with another edition of Special Prosecutor with Larry Klayman. And until then, thank you for listening to me.